Although we've covered it in other videos, I just wanted to do a dedicated one about how to get your data out of JISC and then set it up for analysis. So this is the JISC dashboard, and you'll see here I've got two surveys. This is the test survey that I've been using to demonstrate on previously. And you'll remember that we have our three tabs: design, distribute, and analyze. So I can click into any of the tabs to just get me to this next page here, where I can browse. And then just to remind you what the survey looks like, I've got a mix of these grid questions with semantic differentials, a couple of Likert questions, and then a couple of categorical questions about degree program and gender. What I've also done is I've gone ahead and entered some responses into this, so your one will look different to mine, but here is where you can see your completed response rate. So I've had 19 respondents attempt and complete, 19% response rate. Again, your one will probably look a little bit different to this. So I've got 19 full responses here in memory. So in the Analyze tab, I can do a couple of things. I can manipulate the display. I can browse the responses. You'll see there's a bunch of different options here. In the Advanced tab, I can cross-tabulate. I can do other things like under View and then browse responses. Then I can look at the individual response sets if I want. So this is the complete set for respondent 1. Number 2, if I go to that, then that's going to be the complete set for respondent 2. So it doesn't matter what, well, first of all, we'll go back to the summary tab and just have a look and see what we have here. So by default, what your display is going to look like is this. You're going to have it in either bar charts only, which is this, or you can switch it over to tables only. In which case you'll see that same display for these types of questions here. But in the case of the rank question, where I have this attitude rated from 0 to 10, it also gives me the mean and it gives me the standard deviation as well. So that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what level of display we have it in. The export function is going to work the same way. So what I want to do next is that although we can do some kinds of data analysis in JISC itself, for example, if we wanted to produce a cross tabulation, we could do this. So if we wanted to look at, let's say, the distribution of a particular attitude by gender, we could do this by picking a question to display in the column, picking an independent variable for the row, then setting it to percentages of row. That's our row percentages, and that's going to give me a cross tabulation there that shows me the gender split of this attitude. So this is all well and good, but oftentimes we're going to want to do a little bit more than this in the analysis. We might want to produce some customized graphs, maybe mess around with these tables a little bit more, maybe do a little bit of recoding. So it's always a good idea to export the data if there's something else that we want to do with this. So under the Export tab, when I click this, so there's two options. I can download a PDF of the full response set, or I can export the response data. So what we're going to do in this method is export the response data. This takes me to another screen where we'll start with the bottom one first, which is format. So I can export all of my responses to an Excel file. It's always a good idea to do this periodically because there's always a risk that you just want to be careful and always produce a backup. So periodically, after a couple of days of the survey being active, I always like to go into this and export the response set to an Excel file just to make sure that I have something on file. But if you're ready to push ahead with the analysis, then what I'm going to suggest you do, the easiest format to work with for statistical analysis packages is the SPSS or .sav format. So .sav is the file extension, whatever name we give the file, or whatever name, in this case JISC gives the file. It will be followed by the file extension .sav. Again, similar to if we were to save it in spreadsheet format, it would get .xls or variations on the .xls depending on the version of Excel we have. So in this case, I'm going to set it to SPSS.sav. Now, there's a number of different options that become available here. We can ask it to include respondent IDs if we want. We can ask it to include other information like the date and time. We don't really need to worry about these, but what we do have to worry about are these ones down here. So one box that we do want to check is the combined scale rank values into a single column where possible. And I'm going to check this one off. If we want, we can zero index them, but there's really no need to do this because of the way we have set up the questionnaires. Again, this is specific to my own example, and I imagine for 99% of you, this is probably also going to be the case where we don't need to check this box. But just bear in mind, if you are continuing with this into the future, there are instances where you might want to pay attention to this. We can also exclude free text responses if we want. If you do have some free text questions, this might be a good idea, because what you're usually going to want to do with those free text questions is analyze them independently, is take the free text, copy it over into a word processor if you want, and just use or quote some of that material yourselves. There's no real need or reason, I suppose, to import this into the statistical analysis software. But since I don't have any of these in my own data set, I'm going to leave this unchecked. The next thing we do then is hit export data. And what's going to happen is it's going to push this to download down here. Now, it's very important. For most of you who won't have SPSS installed on your computers, it will come up with a sort of a strange looking icon. And if you just click on this to open straight away, you'll probably get an error message. So what it's done is it has snapped it to downloads. It's gone straight to downloads from the browser. So what you want to do after this then is to go to your downloads folder, wherever that is. It's going to look different on Mac if you're a Mac user. This is Windows because I'm a Windows user. So you're going to want to go to either show all as it appears in Windows, or you're going to want to navigate to your downloads folder and give that file a different name, or a name that makes it a bit easier to identify. So here you can see I've taken that file from my downloads folder, I've copied it into somewhere where I can save it and retrieve it easily. This is my OneDrive. I do recommend that if you're going to be doing some data analysis on campus, that you use your OneDrive. It's a lot easier, especially as you can link it to your own laptop. That means you can just move easily between computers, but you'll always have the same save destination available to you, whether you're on a campus machine or your own laptop or tablet. So it's always a good idea to give this a different name. So just by clicking into it like this, so clicking on it once and then clicking again, or clicking on it, you can go up here and select rename also, it'll do the same thing. I'm going to give it a name like SO303 results, and it's always a good idea to have some kind of version control as well, just to keep track. If I make any changes later on, if I go back and change some settings, export the data again, I might call that one version 2, and that's just a way of keeping track of the version I'm using. So that's how you get your data out of JISC and into a readable format. In the next video, I'll show you how to open up and clean this data in SPSS and get it ready for analysis.